Okay, could you describe for us how you first got involved in politics?
I got involved in politics as a very young woman. I was probably 19 years old, 18 years old. I married a man who was interested in politics. We did it like other couples, go bowling, join dance clubs. We joined the Young Democrats at the University of Texas, and we participated in political campaigns. We helped rabble rouse, carry picket signs, and we had a ball at it. We were involved in the sort of what they call the grassroots. If there was a protest, we were participants, and these were the days of the civil rights marches, the protests against a government that repressed African Americans in this country. And it was a great time to be a part of politics.
Does that still feel familiar to you? The feeling that kind of drove you into that?
Oh, very much so. I have a passion about specific issues. I feel very strongly about what the government is supposed to do as opposed to what the politicians don't do. And I'm an avid reader of the newspaper. I used to listen to television news a lot, and I still do, just to know what's current and to know what the public is hearing. But by and large, the best source of news in the country, I think, is the New York Times. People say that the Times is too left of center, but whether it is or not, it is still the best source of information.
That was a description that was very kind of activism driven, and yet you've played so many different kinds of roles since then. Has that experience kind of changed those interests that you had in politics to begin with?
Actually, I don't think my interests have changed since I was a very young woman. I was a debater in high school, and I went to college on a debate scholarship. That experience of arguing both sides of a question led me to become involved in issues, and those issues still interest me. Having been a county commissioner and a treasurer and a governor, I still have a lot of understanding of how the system really works and how things could be done. So I think that core, that sort of drive to know and to help and to make things change for the better, that's a lifelong pursuit. I have a better sense now of how much time I have. I used to sign up for everything that interested me. Now I'm able to say no to things I know that are going to absorb my time, that aren't going to go anywhere, that are going to involve a lot of really intense and interested people, but is really not going to produce anything.
I'm interested in how you kind of make those assessments. Let's talk maybe about one area that you're well known and seems like anyway for being interested in, that's women's issues.
Yes.
How do you feel that has played out? I mean, you've been involved in that in so many different ways. When you look now and assess the kind of work you've done, mm-hmm. You feel like it's been successful?
Oh, there's no question that the very fact that young women have the same opportunity in college, that they have a chance to play sports because of Title IX, that they have the right to terminate a pregnancy that doesn't make sense in their life or for the life of a child. The fact that we have equal opportunity in the workplace, all those things would never have happened if those of us who were participants of the women's movement had not been there and fought so hard.
You sound satisfied.
Oh, I'm hardly satisfied. I'm outraged most of the time at how the progress seems to stall, how difficult it is for young people to realize that their very freedoms are in jeopardy if they're not willing to fight for them. But you also have to look back and accept and be pleased that things have changed. My grandmother, during a period of her life, did not have the right to vote. The law in Texas was that idiots, imbeciles, the insane, and women could not vote. And less than one generation later, I was the governor of Texas. Now that will tell you that we have progressed.
How about women in office in general? Do you think there's been enough progress in that area in terms of women being elected to office?
I think getting elected to office is a slow thing. Women have to prove themselves more than men do. And we also have the continuing challenge of the fact that we are the ones that have the babies. And everybody wants to know, how are you going to take care of a baby and be in office? Of course, they don't ask that question about how are you going to have a baby and have a job when you have to have the money to help support the guy you married. But that stress and that contest between the importance and the responsibility of child rearing, plus public service on top of it, means that you're willing to give a dedication of your life and an energy in your life that not everyone has, male or female. Our future really has always been in the pipeline. That is, we have to get elected to the local level, city council, county level. We have to then go to the state legislature. Then we might have an opportunity to run statewide. Then we might have an opportunity to run for Congress or the United States Senate. And it takes a long time to make those changes. It's the same for blacks, and it's the same for Hispanics, because we're going against the tide. The tide has always been that white males are the ones that are going to occupy these big elective positions. But we have made a dramatic change in this country, and it will continue. I expect to see a woman president in my lifetime.
It's amazing. Was that one of the things that you were, what is one of the things you were proudest of as governor, your appointments then, and the promotion of people's careers that were women, minorities?
Yeah, it's always hard to point to just one single thing, but certainly the fact that we changed the face of government so that the population of Texas looked at the people in power and said, that's someone that looks like me. We never had a quota system or a specific number that we were trying to achieve, but we wanted the people that I was responsible for appointing to at least look like the percentage of the population. Here's why that matters. It's not that we're smarter or better. It is that we bring a different dimension and a different discussion to the policy table. If we are not there, then a large segment of the population is going to be left out. Little girls grow up differently than little boys. Issues are different when seen from our side than it is when seen from their side. A person of color will tell you how different the world is seen from inside a skin of color than a skin of white. And so all of those points of view should be present at the table when the laws are written and the policies are made. Another reason that it matters is that children cannot aspire to do big things unless they see someone that looks like them doing it. You ask kids in the barrio in Texas or in the ghettos of the cities what people do in the big, tall buildings downtown, and most of them can't tell you because their moms and dads are not in those buildings unless it's to clean it. Unless they can see it as a reality for them, they're never going to be in those positions. I'm so impatient with politicians who mouth those platitudes like dream the impossible dream and all of that stuff. How are you going to dream it if you've never seen it and had the experience in your own life? But once you see that someone else that looks like you has done it, it gives you the idea, well, that maybe you could do that too.
Maybe along the same lines. I want to ask you something a little bit mundane, but when you were serving as governor, was there a real learning curve? I mean, did you go in and have to learn some things right away that you thought you weren't? I mean, did you go in thinking you knew what you were going to face and then learn some stuff once you got there, or was it what you expected?
I didn't have a learning curve in the sense that I think you're talking about, and that is the practical business of how government works. I knew that. The learning curve really had to do more with relationships. I was really surprised at how much nurturing and attention and just almost like you're dealing in your family with your kids, elected officials take. They like lots of attention. They like lots of telephone calls and inviting them over to the office and inviting them over to the mansion for dinner and symbolic kind of stuff. Well, I must be important because the governor calls me. And I was not very good at that. I really wasn't. And I tried to learn it, but it didn't come natural to me. I didn't think of it. I didn't think, well, I better call, old Joe Blow and tell him this is what I'm thinking about and see what he thinks about it before I say anything to anybody. And so if I had a failing, that was it, that I was not a schmoozer.
Do you think you paid a price for that at all?
No question about it. Absolutely no question about it.
Any big disappointments from being governor? Anything that when you got done you wished?
There were a lot of things that I would like to have seen to fruition. A lot of plans and programs that we put into place that were stopped when George Bush came in and eliminated. So I'm really sorry. They needed the time to mature before you could really tell the success of them. I think I wish I had left a legacy of the acquisition of more parkland that would be preserved in perpetuity. I'm sure there are other things that I could think of if I spent time. Certainly, teachers' employment circumstances and the amount of money that they earn paid by the state, I wish I could have increased that more.
Is there something that you think people don't know about how government works that would really help them understand the way that things work better? I mean, you talked about it. You seem to have you went in with a kind of intimate knowledge of how everything works. Mm-hmm. Is there something you think would help people understand how that all works better?
Government's messy. You know, the story is there are two things you never want to see made, law and sausage. It involves really getting your hands dirty and dealing with really tough, grubby issues. It is conceived and produced by human beings. Human beings are flawed. They have feelings. There's emotion that goes into it. There's also the very practical business of people who look on it as a job and they want to stay there. I guess the most frustrating thing about government is that there are people who vote on issues for the pure reason that they think that it will appeal to a certain constituent group that will perpetuate them in office. I've never believed in limiting terms. Seems to me if people want to send them down there, whether they're bimbos or not, that's what democracy is all about. But I think it is a shock to a lot of people that there is a lot of cynicism in government on the part of some of the people who are elected to office, who take actions to perpetuate their existence.
Before we sat down, we were talking about what was important to get out of a university education. Could you talk about that a little bit?
No one ever told me when I was in college or in graduate school that I might be preparing myself for life. My whole goal was to be married, have fun, be with the man I loved, get away from my folks, but still have them support me for a while, and I was going to do all of the things that the slick magazine said I ought to do. I was going to have a family. I was going to have this lovely house. I wasn't going to have to worry about anything, and I was going to have a bunch of kids named Dick and Jane, and we would have Puff and Spot, and pretty much that's what I did. And it just bored the living hell out of me. I was so bored. Cooking and sewing, and there were days when I spent the entire day ironing shirts. So it occurred to me very late, like my kids were getting older, and I was probably in my late 30s or 40s, that this was my life. That I was going to spend my life sitting in front of a TV set with this guy. And it was not much. So I was always involved in a volunteer way in politics and things at the school involving the kids. And I really was a fighter for my children. I think the one thing I regret is that when I was in college, I didn't realize that this really is a preparation for the big L. And that life is far more interesting and a lot more fun if you have the knowledge to prepare you to do all of the things that are going to be available to you if you are interesting, if you're energetic, and if you're curious. That curiosity can lead you to world travel, to all of the plays, all of the operas, all of the musicals, all of the art museums, all of the other museums, and they make you a far more interesting person. And you're also more satisfied with your own company. I know people who are scared to death to be alone. And as you age, believe me, it's a big deal. Your friends begin to die on you, and your mates begin to die, and all of a sudden there you are alone. So if I were to tell young people today anything that I could think of that I think is a good preparation for life, is to try to find out how to be interesting and prepare for living alone. Learn to love yourself. Learn to like your own company, because sooner or later you're going to be required to do it. They, and that's the big they out there, have a tendency to hire people that are interesting too, not just people that are educated. So if you're well-rounded and if you can express yourself and if you are curious, you're going to have an opportunity for a lot of good jobs that are going to pay you the money to have the freedom to do anything you want to do.
That's great. How are we doing on time?
We're 25 minutes in.
What time? Because I know they're, okay. I'm going to ask you one more thing about the Democratic Party. You were going to talk about that before, and I want to hear about that.
All right.
Tell me what's happening with the Democratic Party in Texas, and if you want to talk nationally too, but the last election was such a drubbing, and there's been a lot of talk about, is there a future, and if there is a future for the Democratic Party, how far out is it? How do you see that?
We have a tendency in this country to talk in absolutes. You either win big or you lose big. In truth, the last election, simply because we lost a number of elections we wanted to win, we did not lose by that much. This country is pretty clearly divided. We lost the last presidential election because there was a third-party candidate named Ralph Nader that took votes from the Democrats, or we would have won the presidency. So it was not a clear Republican-Democrat decision. And there are some of us who think that Al Gore won anyway. But the Democratic Party did not seem to have a voice. It didn't seem to be able to enunciate who it was. You had a bunch of candidates who were running around with a mushy message, and the American people don't care for mush. The President Bush did a very good job of staying focused on an issue that the polling had showed that no one cared anything about, and that was Homeland Security. And when you think about it, it was a very interesting mix. He said, I am going to take you into war, and I'm going to make you safer. And the American people bought that. But no Democrat enunciated it the way I have. No Democrat went after Bush because somehow they were intimidated by the fact that he had a high popularity rating. The Democrats had to take him on. They had to take him on in unison, and they had to take him on hard. And they, for some reason, were unwilling to do that. And as long as they continue to do that, they will continue to lose. Now, in Texas, you have to understand that Texas has always been a very conservative voting state. We had a single-party system. The Republicans were in the Democratic Party because there was only one party. Some of the liberal Democrats, of which I was one, did everything in the world that we could to help the Republican Party grow in Texas, because we thought there should be a two-party system and that there should be the conflict between the two to enunciate the issues. So we succeeded, and we succeeded very well. We wanted them out of the Democratic Party, and they got out in spades. Plus the fact that the state of Texas now is made up of an awful lot of people who aren't Texan, who came here from California or New York or Massachusetts or the Rust Belt for the opportunities that exist here, and they brought their Republican leanings with them. So can the Democrats win again in Texas? Absolutely. What is it going to take for them to win? It's going to take a serious vision, and it's going to take serious money to be able to do it. And it's going to have to produce candidates in which the public has a solid dedication and belief. Now, why did I win? I mean, I was obviously, everyone says I was an anomaly. No one expected me to win. Well, of course they didn't. I mean, I think when I got in the race, they showed me a column of figures that I thought said might be willing to vote for me. I think it was like 56%. And after I looked at that list, the pollster said, these are the people that wouldn't vote for you under any circumstance. So it was uphill. But I was running against a guy who had a loose lip, who said things he should never have said, who thought he was too cute by a long shot, and did things to defeat himself. And as a consequence, I was able to beat him. In the election against Bush, the big issue was guns. I lost votes among Democratic stalwarts because I did not believe that there should be a law in Texas that allow you to carry guns in your pocket. And George Bush drove that issue and drove it very well. I also made a lot of mistakes. I didn't run a very good campaign. I thought it mattered what I had done, but in reality, in races, it's more important to talk about what you're going to do, not what you've done.
It sounds like in talking both about Texas and the country at large, you see a real disconnect between, or at least some degree of disconnect between sort of Democrats out in the body politic and the leadership of the party. Am I hearing that right?
Well, I don't know who the leadership of the party is. I don't know what that means.
Candidates, office holders, DNC folks.
I know that there has not been a cohesive message from the Democrats in a very long time. But you know, we're an unruly bunch. We're independent thinkers. Most of the rank and file Democrats do not get in line behind a leader and march in lockstep. Now, I know that it seems absurd for me to suggest that perhaps Republicans do that, but let's say they do it an awful lot more than Democrats do. We're all interested in our own specific issues, and so the Democratic umbrella has to be really big, and you have to be able to hold the working class, women, Hispanics, blacks, Asian, because that's the core of the Democratic Party and the Democratic vote, under that umbrella. And it is very difficult to drive a specific issue and have all of those folks sign on at the same time. Republicans have a tendency to talk conservative, 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 restrict women and what they can do about having babies, make it easier for business to pollute the air, and there they are, and everybody salutes. It doesn't happen among the Democrats, and I don't expect it to. Bill Clinton was a master at being able to keep everybody in the tent. He is a very good example of how the Democratic Party can win and will come back.